The Louisville and Nashville Railroad has held a rich history in its 132 years of operation between 1850 and 1982. However, the L&N has held a special place for all rail fans, history buffs, and etc. It has so much stories to tell, and even their legacy lives on to its very day, with such steam locomotives in museums, or have CSX 1850, the L&N Heritage Unit, carry its colors on CSX's rail network. Today, I have decided to collaborate with Buccaneer Rail Fanning as a result for the 175th anniversary of the L&N. Anyways, let's dive straight through the history of the L&N and see what it has to offer. The Louisville and Nashville Railroad began its operations on March 5th, 1850, which today is March 5th, by the way, by the Commonwealth of Kentucky. They wanted to have a railroad that will connect from Louisville, Kentucky to Nashville, Tennessee. The main course of action was to provide rail service for both freight and passenger services for these two cities and states. This would open up many marketing values for both the southern states and the northern states via the Ohio River and the Tennessee Valley. They had its first track gauges set at 4 feet and 8.5 inches for the first 20 years of the railroad. However, the first train wouldn't run in 9 years until November 1st, 1859, when they finally sent out its very first train from Louisville to Nashville. The early locomotive was most likely under the C-class section portion. It is not exactly known what exact model it was, but it was believed to be a Baldwin Works locomotive. Then, right after the L&N was founded, the Civil War ended up breaking out between the Confederacy and the Union. If you did ask and decide what side did the L&N Railroad take on, was it the Confederacy or was it the Union? If you said both of them, you are correct. And it was at first. The Confederacy did had the L&N at first, but then as soon as the first year and second year of the war was passing by, the Union ended up acquiring them as a result by force, because Tennessee and Kentucky was swiftly taken by the Union. As a result, the war would end in 1865 with the defeat of the Confederacy at Appomattox, Virginia. Unlike other railroads that were destroyed in the Civil War, the Louisville and Nashville Railroad thrived better, faster, stronger, and work was never stopped. By the 1870, the Louisville and Nashville would expand their tracks from 4 feet 8.5 inch gauge to 5 feet gauges. They were also able to acquire more efficient steam locomotives like the 2x6x0 or mogul steam locomotives, while holding on to the 4x4x0 and the 4x6x0 steam locomotives. These types of steam locomotives played a crucial role for helping the L&N in the late 18th century. By 1890, the Louisville and Nashville Railroad would have trackage claims in 8 states and would connect to the Gulf of Mexico as well via New Orleans, Louisiana, Mobile, Alabama, and Pensacola, Florida, while also having connections to Birmingham, Memphis, Cincinnati, and even St. Louis. This would even get better for the Louisville and Nashville as the next century begins.
Hello everyone, my name is Jericho, also known as the voice behind Buccaneer Rail Fanning. I plan to return to YouTube soon, and I am so grateful that Southern CSX has allowed me to graciously be featured in this video. I hope you all have a great day, and happy L&N Day. The 20th century would change every aspect of the L&N in every way. Starting in the early 1900s, they would become the most stable and respected railroad in the South, rivaling the Southern Railway itself. They had an awesome network of passenger service for all the major cities within its rail network, and would even grow to its peak in the 1920s. The L&N would also grow with its freight, especially with coal from the Appalachian Mountains. They were also upgrading their rolling stock, invested into other rail networks, and acquired new locomotives such as the 462s that were built by various companies. At this time, legendary passenger service lines included the Hummingbird and Pan American. These would be the best and most comfortable modes of transportation. They also held a special station for passengers called Union Station, located at 1001 Broadway Street in Nashville, Tennessee. They were so good and stable, they ended up surviving the Great Depression. While other railroads were going bankrupt and falling apart, the Louisville and Nashville was holding on strong to their values and still rolled on right through. Right after the Great Depression came was World War II, when Adolf Hitler decided to invade Poland, thus throwing the whole world into World War II. The L&N played a crucial role in delivering victory to the Allies, in shipping freight to the ports and getting military equipment out to Europe, Africa, and Asia as well to fight the Axis powers. After the war ended, the L&N would be faced with a new set of challenges like dieselization, with locomotives such as the FA2 and RS3 and later the E and F series of units, but also acquiring the legendary World War II era Big Emma Berths. These locomotives were built in the 1920s, but acquired by the L&N in the 1940s. And the L&N took a huge number of them, and they were expensive. They put everything on those Big Emmas. They were used for special excursions, coal service, and passenger service between Corbin and Cincinnati. However, unfortunately, these didn't last long and were retired 15 years later in 1957. They moved on to diesels, and these were far more reliable and produced less emissions than the steam locomotives. The steam locomotives were retired right around this time in the 1950s, as well as its passenger service declined. Airplanes and automobiles were becoming a lot more reliable and a dominant part of transportation in America, and to an extent all across the world as well. This would hurt a lot of railroads, including the L&N, to such an extent with these changes that they would end up abandoning passenger service, but that kind of hesitated a little bit. Moving on to the 1960s, the L&N would acquire more Alco locomotives such as the EMB GP7, Alco S1s, EMB switchers, Alco RS36s, and even the first GP40s. This would massively increase its roster as well as even expanding the network itself. However, the railroad on the inside was struggling to maintain its former glory, and by 1971, the L&N would become a subsidiary of the SCL or Seaboard Coastline, which would become under the Family Line system. This arrangement allowed the Louisville and Nashville Railroad to operate semi-independently while benefiting from shared resources and the streamlined operations. Unfortunately, the time for L&N would come to an abrupt end in the 1980s to 1982, as a result of the Seaboard system being established, and 4 years later, it would become CSX as a result. This would end the legacy of the L&N, or does it?
Even though the Louisville and Nashville is now under the acquisition of CSX, they wouldn't retain its paint until CSX would get a hold of them and repaint it at their paint shops on either its stealth YN1 scheme or on its blue and gray YN2 scheme much later on. CSX and many other groups would also preserve the L&N locomotives both in steam and diesel right across the country. However, there wasn't any active locomotives that would honor the L&N running on the rails except CSX 323 and AC 44 CW that had a sticker on the conductor side. However, it got rebuilt to 7272, a CM 44 AC in July 2022, but that didn't really count anyway. People wondered if CSX would ever get a hold of any heritage units and jump into the heritage unit game, like Norfolk Southern and Union Pacific did years earlier. This would come true in May 2023 when CSX would first announce its very first heritage unit under the Baltimore and Ohio paint fade scheme, which the Baltimore and Ohio was painted mostly up right until the cow portions, which would fade into CSX, which was really unique. And it was renumbered from CSX 3059 and ES 44H built in June 2012. The Louisville and Nashville would become the 6th heritage unit that would be done as a result out of 21 to honor its legacy, and it was renumbered from 3056, another ES 44H, as a result of the 2012-2013 acquisition, like build these things. However, a smaller version and more original version of the L&N locomotive would hit CSX 2625, a GP38-2 that was built as, ironically, Louisville and Nashville 4118 in March 1973. CSX 2625 would have its L&N nose done overnight from either vandals or even art from CSX themselves. No one knows who really did it. Anyways, that is all for the 175 years of the L&N and all from the history from start to finish. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you Buccaneer Rail Fanning for helping me out on this, and comment about your favorite part of the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. Anyways, thank y'all and see y'all later. Peace.